China has been on par with pretty much every industry in the world, be it engineering, technology, or the most recent involvement in the space race. China seems to be emerging as a future superpower. While we've all heard of China's Tiangong station, do you know why they developed it in the first place? Let's find out. Welcome to our channel, guys. In today's video, we'll discuss the real reason why China's developed the Tiangong station. Before that, do subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Tiangong Space Station, or Heavenly Place, is China's new permanent address in space. The project, which has been under planning since the 1990s, first started with the Tiangong station's core module called Tianyi. Tianyi, which was launched on April 29th, has more to its meaning than just Heavenly River. It is also the Chinese name for the Milky Way. But it isn't complete yet. Yang Lue, the chief designer of China's human spaceflight program, has said the astronauts have a lot of tasks to do after entering the core module. For screws alone, they have over 1,000 to remove. But similar to the former Russian space station Mir and the International Space Station, the entire station is too massive to be launched in one piece. Tianyi, the core module weighing at 22.5 tons, was lifted to orbit approximately 400 kilometers from the surface of the Earth. A Long March 5B rocket from the Wingcheng launch site, situated on the island of Hainan, was used to hoist the module into space. For better context, the Long March 5B has a thrust that falls between the SpaceX rockets Falcon Heavy and Falcon 9. So why is it called the core module? Because it has everything required for life in space, which includes the latest life support systems, specific areas for sleeping and sanitization, electrical power management units, firefighting equipment, and a functional kitchen. Talking of which, the kitchen is to sustain 3 astronauts over their 6-day working week, and is well stocked with over 120 different kinds of food. Tianyi is also equipped with docking ports that will enable astronaut flights and robotic cargo resupply capsules to dock. Another key component of the module is the all-new Wingcheng lab. The first key module, which contains living quarters for crew members, was launched into space in April 2021, while the Wingcheng Science Lab is expected to be lifted off towards the end of 2022. The country has already put up 2 temporary trial space stations, named Tiangong 1 and Tiangong 2. The first project, which was launched in 2011, has been serviced many times with Chinese astronauts visiting the station on multiple occasions to test the docking procedures with cargo craft. But in 2016, when the station was decommissioned, CNSA lost contact with it. Due to impaired communication with the station, it led to a fiery return to Earth's atmosphere, which angered several notable critics across the world. Tiangong 2, which was then launched in 2016, was designed for a shorter duration as a test station. The goal was to evaluate living conditions in orbit, including measuring radiation levels and even growing food. Thankfully, this station's descent was controlled, and it made its re-entry over the Pacific Ocean in 2019. Apart from the core module, the Tiangong Space Station will also contain 2 laboratories, Mengchen, Heavenly Dreams, and Wenshen, Heavenly Quest, which will be launched over the next few years. The design of these laboratories will be based on Tiangong 2's facilities and requirements. Unlike the ISS, where electrical power to all modules is supplied by huge solar arrays located on purpose-built gantries, in the Tiangong, each module is said to carry its own solar array. Once complete, the 60-ton Tiangong will be capable of hosting 3 astronauts and will have the capacity to support future science experiments and spacewalks. But the project would not have been possible without some much-needed international collaboration. Astronauts from the European Space Agency have previously trained with Chinese astronauts in significant areas such as ocean survival. The long-term goal of the ESA is to enable its own astronauts to fly on-board Chinese space missions. But will the Tiangong station be able to one day replace the ISS? Only time can tell. However, the experience that astronauts gain through their research will be crucial for future Martian and lunar exploration efforts. Recently, China, in collaboration with Russia, unveiled a roadmap for the International Lunar Research Station. The project will include several robotic lunar orbiters and landers, and will culminate in a human-crewed research facility, either on the surface or in orbit. China has tons of ambitions for Tiangong. The station will have its integral power, propulsion, life support systems, and living quarters. It is also designed to provide refueling power to China's new space telescope called Shunxian, which will fly past the station in the coming year. China is only the third country in history to have not only put astronauts into space, but also build a space station. The other two are the Soviet Union, now Russia, and the US. China hopes Tiangong will replace the International Space Station, which is due to be decommissioned in 2031. Chinese astronauts are currently excluded from the ISS because US law bans NASA from sharing its data with China. However, Chinese ambitions do not end there. A few down, and China wants to experiment with asteroids in the vicinity of Earth. By 2030, it aims to have its first astronaut on the Moon and to have sent probes to collect samples from Mars and even Jupiter. But China is not alone in its space endeavors. NASA has been planning lunar missions to the Moon with other countries for 2025 and has rolled out its new giant SLS rocket at the Kennedy Space Center. Some other countries include Japan, South Korea, India, and the United Arab Emirates, which are also working on their lunar missions. Meanwhile, the European Space Agency is also planning a network of lunar satellites to make it easier for astronauts to communicate with Earth. Let's take a look at some of these rules that need to be followed in space. The UN Outer Space Treaty of 1967 says nowhere in space can be claimed by any one nation. The UN Moon Treaty of 1979 says space should not be commercially exploited, but the US, China, and Russia have refused to sign. Now, the US is promoting its Artemis Accords, spelling out how nations can exploit the moon's minerals in a cooperative way. However, Russia and China refrain from signing these contracts as they claim the US has no right to make these rules. China has come a long way, from first putting up its satellite in 1970 at a time when only the US, the Soviet Union, France, and Japan were the other countries to do so. China has launched over 200 rockets in the past decade alone. It has already sent an unmanned mission to the moon, called Chang'e 5, to retrieve rock samples. It also planted a Chinese flag on the lunar surface, which was deliberately far bigger than the US flags. With the launch of Shenzhou-14, China has now launched 14 astronauts into space, compared with 340 by the US and more than 130 by the Soviets. But there have been setbacks. In 2021, part of a Chinese rocket tumbled out of orbit and crashed into the Atlantic Ocean over and above two launches that failed in 2020. Chinese state media, Xinhua, said that at least 300,000 people have worked on China's space projects, almost 18 times more than those who worked at NASA. The Chinese National Space Administration was set up in 2003 with an initial annual budget of 2 billion won, or $300 million, 240 million pounds. However, in 2016, China opened its space industry to private companies, and these are now investing about 10 billion won, $1.5 billion, or 1.2 billion pounds, annually. China is keen to develop its satellite technology for telecommunications, air traffic management, weather forecasting, navigation, and more. But as a hidden agenda, most satellites have military purposes, be it spying or guiding long-range missiles. This can be a worrisome development globally. Lucinda King, space project manager at Portsmouth University, says they are prolific in all aspects of space. They have the political motivation and the resources to fund their planned programs. China's moon missions are partly motivated by the opportunities to extract rare earth metals from its surface. However, Professor Saeed Moshtar, director of the London Institute of Space Policy and Law at the University of London, says China's space program is driven more by a desire to impress the rest of the world. It's a projection of power and a demonstration of technological advancement. What do you think? Is China launching its space station for military reasons or for space exploration? Let us know in the comments below. And while you do that, don't forget to give us a like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more updates. Thanks for watching.